Hello and welcome to another episode of Transformational Blueprints, where we try to put a dent in the large number of transformation programs that fail. Hosted by me, Mario Michaels, founder and director of Synaxia Group. On this series, we will bring you unique insights drawn from first-hand experience from some of the most high-profile architecture and transformation leaders across the globe. Topics told in order to share knowledge, experiences and ideas to inspire, innovate and give back to the architecture community. So grab a coffee, sit back and relax. Tawhid, welcome very much to the pod. Today we're going to be talking about a number of things, but I suppose one key thing is working for a private equity backed business and how that is different within an architecture setting. So just to give everybody a bit of an outline, Tawhid is known to be a pragmatic and results-oriented professional with a rare mix of skills across business, IT, and ops. He operates and has advised at CIO, CDO, CTO, and also COO levels for businesses ranging from startups, scale-ups, and large enterprises, and brings to them strong commercial acumen coupled with a passion for innovation in data, digital, and AI. So a very varied experience in size of business, operating levels, etc., etc. Tawhid, welcome. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, Tawhid, your career and how you got to where you are.
Lovely to be here. Thank you, Mario. I think you've covered all ground. Those are exactly all the things I say when I introduce myself. So I'm currently chief architect for specialty insurer. We operate in the B2B segment. So most of our clients are in fact brokers or large corporates. My background, I guess, most cross I'd say 15-ish years in consulting and telecom. So I think I started off with when database development. Everyone, if you built something back in those days, you were a developer. Now you're. I started off there and then gradually moved towards systems analysis and enterprise architecture. And for more than the last decade is in financial services. So worked across all of the UK banks, fintech, asset managers, both retail and commercial insurers. So I moved more in business facing roles. But at the end of the day, they were all data centric changes. So,
Okay.
I used to describe myself as a full stack data consultant.
Okay. And you've worked in a lot of consultancies as well, some of the bigger ones as well. So we'll come on to that in a moment. But I suppose where I always like to start off the conversation, you've managed large teams, small teams, verticals. What do you think makes a great?
I think the way I describe it is, one, you have to understand the investment that, not, you have to appreciate that not all businesses are built to be the same. So you can't just take, like something you read on a paper that works, let's say a fintech or predominant company and apply that to, let's say a commercial organization. So I think if you want to be a good architect, you have to investment appetite. Because that helps you tell stories better. So one of the things I do, for instance, whenever I pick up a new project, client, organization, whatever, I go through their annual report.
Yeah.
A lot of my peers would want an as-is, diagram of the architecture. I go after the annual report because that tells me, what the investment priorities are. Because at the end of the day, if you want to live your design, you need to find a way of, the business case for it. So I think that's one. The second thing, it's actually a leadership principle from AWS.
Okay.
It's about having a bias for action. So I think gone are those that you can sit in a team of, 10, 20 architects and design guardrails and blueprints, frameworks, and expect that to become reality to, large engineering teams. Things move fast and have to partner up with engineers and have a much more pragmatic way of designing solutions. And the third bit, I think, is have awareness of your ecosystem.
Okay.
So a lot of things that you you might be designing, to be built in a different way. Someone has already done it out in the, so, have awareness of not just the data tools or the tech
hmm
tools, but also the business ecosystem.
And your background is very much that of an engineer when you first started, as you said and alluded to in your introduction. Why do you think that's benefited you now?
Um, I think we left engineering a good 7, 8 years ago. Where I think it benefits having worked in both business and tech is it helps you tell stories. It
Okay.
helps you create. It helps you distill, the complexity of a build process from the actual, actually bridge those two together. That is on the kind of engagement, communicate value. The other avenue is when you have an engineering background, every time you're designing a solution, you're also thinking about the viability, the
hmm
ability to actually execute on it. You're not just thinking how the technology talk to each other. You're also thinking about the skills that will be needed to bring it to life and whether your organization can attract those skills. Does it
Yep.
already have them in house? Are those skills you will need long term? Yeah. So you take a multifaceted view of design. You're not just looking at how can I make this elegant. You're also thinking who's going to build it, who's going to run it. Do I have
Yep.
it in house? Is that something, my company is willing to spend money on long term? You take a multifaceted view.
I think the blend of engineering, as you say, that multifaceted view of who's going to build it, how we're going to build it, what's the impact, etc. But then you also bring this business element to it as well, which is, yeah, we can build, the greatest thing in the world, but if I know the users aren't going to use it or the customers aren't going to use it, or there's no point building it. And that's really, really hard to come by. And I think, answering my own question, what makes a great architect, I think it is that multifaceted view of, yes, you need to understand what goes into building something. You also need to understand the business implications that has. And then also, what real return or what real impact is that going to have on the business and the customer side of things? I think if you pull all those three together, which over the past few years we've seen that diminish a lot, or you do get people that are too busy and don't understand the technology that sits behind it. So yeah, as you bringing that more sensitive view and those personalities together is absolutely vital. So you touched on IQ and what they do. What's your remit again? Just so when we're talking about the conversation of context behind it, what's your remit at IQ as chief architect there?
So I'm probably hired in a forum position. Previous, we were relying on a partner, consultancy service provider, and I report into the chief operating office and the chief finance office as opposed to a pure IT architect.
hmm
So my remit covers a 20-30% strategy. Forget the numbers, but it covers strategy. So across an enterprise wide view, how do we combine technology, data, innovation capabilities to achieve our vision? Where do we make build versus buy? Part of it is pure strategy. Then is against that strategy. So
hmm
implement your technical design authority,
Yep.
govern the standards through which we apply controls before solutions go live and while they're being developed. Then I have a set of strategic initiatives where I will provide almost and project level design support.
Yep.
So these are, let's say specific assets that we will invest in franchise value. And then there's innovation. So how do we stay on top of it pretty much in tech plays, emerging ecosystem plays. So it covers quite broad,
Mm.
I guess, horizontal. And then the verticals are, we run a specialties London market business. So that covers about 15 classes of business.
Oh.
We underwrite anything from aviation, cyber to flood, natural disasters, political violence.
Right.
So that's one part of the business. The other part of the is the commercial motor insurer. So that covers pretty much any you can get to a, compare the trucks, agricultural vehicles, military equipment, taxis, police vehicles, LPF. And then the third is our outward reinsurance contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of that is the US market. And this is more complex. So this is look like it's equivalent to saying how do you balance out your portfolio.
That's, I mean,
It's pretty
that,
complex.
I was going to say
Very, very
that sounds pretty complex. So, you joined fairly recently. What did your first 20 days look like? And just to caveat that, you're the first permanent architect the business has employed. There's clearly a remit to try and grow that as a practice as, imaginable, because it sounds pretty complex. So what do, day one, IQ, what do the first 90 days look like?
You know what? It's gone so fast. I actually can't recall. Like I joined in September, but I think what has worked well. So for me, context at a time when there's different there's a very broad range of changes going through, different delivery models, different architecture, and you step back and you go, actually, before I can demonstrate value of architects, I need to influence how things actually get delivered, how change gets delivered. And so my focus was embedding some level of lightweight architectural support and governance part of our change methodology. So for instance, embedding, very quickly defining what our well-architected framework would look like. What's worked for me is start shallow, but start broad. So start with a shallow framework and get it adopted into procurement, into change committee, into steering committee. And so focus on what behaviors you need to change within people who will make you successful. So don't start deep. I think that worked well for me. So now, for instance, we have that framework embedded in procurement. So every time we sign new contracts with vendors or vendor selection, it's the same consistent template that goes out.
Yeah.
Whenever we bring things into our change committee, it's the same framework that project managers will do and say, okay, have we assessed it again? Part of it is, changing behaviors of your counterparts who will make you successful outside architecture. The second important thing I had to pick up was understand what our growth agenda is.
Yep.
And behind the scene technical challenges that act as barriers to that growth agenda. Some of it happened to be on infrastructure. So pick that up. Some of it happens to be how we, let's say, integrate into third-party software as a service. So pick that up. And you pick these kind of behind-the-scene activities to show the value that's visible to the business. Demonstrate how it reduces support or how it reduces cost of engineering, or demonstrate how if you do this differently in 2024, then 2025 becomes simpler. How it makes it more secure. So all that now, at the moment now, I've got how many? So 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 people in my team who've joined in the last, 3 months. And then I've got another person coming in. So yeah, from 0 to about 5 people
in 6 months. Yeah. And you mentioned that,
and a lot of it is not funded through any kind of pot. It's all funded through business areas. Right? So, aligning architect not to IT domain, but to business verticals, like the architect aligned to finance, architect aligned to, architect aligned to motor, aligned to, cyber, etc.
So there's three things I want to sort of delve into a little bit there. The first one is understanding the growth agenda. And you mentioned a couple of examples there. You're new to the business. How do you go about doing that? Who do you speak to? What sort of questions are you asking to really understand, to get under the nooks and crannies of that growth agenda? Because that is instrumental to, that's the engine that you're going to be, isn't it?
Mm, like surefire steps. So I always start with the annual report.
Yep. Okay.
That tells me what the executive committee has committed. I will look at, email trails and identify, quote unquote, vocal stakeholders and try to grab copies with them.
Yep.
I will try to access, the change book of work that, let's say, my boss's boss will be aware of. So there are many things you could look at in your first 4 weeks. I think the lesson I've learned is it's never going to be written in black and white anyway.
Yeah.
You almost have to infer. You have to infer. You have to look at the post that, is putting on its public website. Yeah. Those are things that the company is proud of. And then find ways of speaking to people behind that, because in their mind, that's probably like step 1 or step 5 thing.
Yeah.
It's like I have this allergic reaction to that.
Exactly. And that's the hard thing around it, right? You've really got to, it's like,
you will never, right?
Pulling teeth out.
But you need to, what works better is, I think behavioral psychologists will describe it as observable behavior.
What behavior you say, Tawhid?
Observable behavior.
Observable, right? Okay.
Yeah. So if you can accumulate observable culture of the business and what it values. So for instance, if you see that for some odd reason there's a part of the business always manages to get its changes approved, right?
Yep.
Some part of the business that has a self-sufficient, self-funded team, delivering team, then that, even if it's not written on paper, someone high up in the business has given that leader the. So I identified individuals such as those.
Okay.
And made the effort to, meet that, okay, they're not UK based, find time, look through their PAs, build the connection. And then that's when here's how they're trying to grow.
Yeah.
As an architect, maybe is that half an hour.
Yeah.
That half an hour is the opportunity to, you have to almost get out of your architect comfort zone. So you almost have to get into, I saw you, you're doing this. Have you considered, how X will happen, Y will happen?
Yeah.
Don't lead with fear. Don't lead with fear. Lead with things like, how do your team, run their FP&A? You guys use this. Oh, you should be off something better, right? And then they'll say, oh yeah, we've been trying to do this, but we didn't get anyone to approve. And that's when you can.
Don't worry, I'll do that for you. Yeah. That's it. You got to go in there, right? As you say, don't go in it with, right, I'm here to help you. My job is purely to serve and help you make your, so you can do whatever their end objective is, whether that is close more sort of deals, raise more corporate finance, whatever it is. And earlier on, you mentioned how you've brought in 4 or 5 architects in the past sort of 6 months. And tell us a little bit about how that works, because that's quite unique.
So it depends on the way change is funded in a business.
Okay.
And the net value that different sponsors across the business, these architects bring in.
Okay.
If the mindset is, we need a central team of architects, make sure we're doing things safely, central budget. And if you have a large central budget, then those architects would be all aligned to IT domains. So you'll have a network architect, a security architect, information, etc. But if the business perception is, if we get architects on our project and they help build things in a way that gets us to move faster, spend lesser,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps next year's agenda better, right? Then they'd be more than happy to bring those architects, apportion some of this year's budget for next year's team. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're able to, land into that sphere, then you're able to influence the business better. But the downside is finding architects is more hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because then you have to bring people operate at an enterprise level. They have at least 2 areas of specialization. So, either they really understand data and, analytic value chain, but not so much infra, or maybe they understand infra and network, but not so much, let's say, application development.
Software,
So one of the things I did was look through my kind of biggest changes that are planned, and, thinking in the air, where is the quantum of the architect work needed? So where I saw, okay, X amount of projects, it's not core infra change, but the data needs to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out for T-shaped architect, but with the specialization in data, versus a group of projects here, which are fundamentally legacy infra change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, go after a T-shaped architect who knows insurance, but, domain focus is infra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So setting up that team is a lot harder than setting up your classic, hard team. But it's
Solution
pays better
architects,
return because then I don't need large central budgets.
Yeah. Makes absolute sense. I love it.
And
Okay.
the business needs to value what they bring in, right?
Yeah. And they're able, because they're sat within the business areas, they're able to build close relationships, which means they're able to understand their end user or their client, which is, the internal stakeholders better.
Mm-hmm.
And then striving for the same goal. Whereas I think, and architects have been known to be called ivory tower architects because they're sat all the way over and they don't know what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And it's really hard to demonstrate value. And we'll come on to that in a second. But one area you touched on earlier during your introduction, you report into the COO and a dotted line into the CFO. That is really, really what usually a CTO or CIO would do, or they on the board, and architecture is aligned into technology. What's the thought process behind this?
So I think part of it I have been logistical because an interim role.
Yep.
And so we ran through the interview processes. Maybe I appeared as someone who, beyond the tech it brings in. So I don't know the rationale that they had behind it. From my perspective, I think because I think it's down to the segment of the market we operate in. We are not a retail business.
Okay.
We don't have, 40 million customers.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
We're a low volume business.
Yeah.
And so for an architect, what that means is, don't be naive that you can build one thing and it will work for every customer.
Yeah.
Like if I've got 17 classes of business on one side, I've got 7 classes of motor on the other side, I've got, reinsurance work on the other side. I could never design one IT architect. Yeah. So go on.
I was going to say, but then surely that makes your job a bit more difficult. These different areas, surely they've got to align to some area of technology, bringing it all back into a central area. Difficult to articulate what I'm trying to say, but if you've got that over there, that over there, that over there, how do they all talk to each other?
Well, technically they don't.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but
is that purposeful?
Well, I think it's impractical.
Yeah,
I think it's impractical. So, for instance, because I don't have 20 million customers who between them share 5 different profiles, it's impossible for me to think all of that customer data will be in one lakehouse.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it possible for me to think I'll have one engine that provides these 25 classes of business to me, right? So you almost have to take a domain oriented and go, okay, for this particular domain, how does that work? This particular domain, how does that work? You might have a submissions domain, a business domain, a broker domain, etc. The thing that you can bring back together are things like, how do they connect to our network? How do they classify data?
Yeah.
How do I manage access into third-party systems? Those things you can centralize. You can centralize orchestration, centralize integration hubs. But the classic thing that people usually centralize, it's like, okay, this is our default framework for building digital apps. Oh, that ain't working. You got like 1,400 brokers, of which, there are like 7 different varieties, and then software houses. So the more I think about it, the thing that needs to be aligned is the operational strategy. Is how do you operate the business? Yeah, guardrails. What do you build versus what do you buy? Guardrails around what are your assets that you attach product value to.
Yeah.
To me, those aren't technology decisions.
Yep. Yeah. Make the tool or the enabler to make that happen rather than we're focusing on everything around technology. And do you, I suppose, really blunt question, pointing into a COO and dotted line into a CFO, do you,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're definitely one step closer to the chief executive.
Yep.
Right. You are definitely one step closer to, those growth agendas, those business plans. You're one step closer to, let's say, strategic contracts that we make with partners. Right. I think this is probably something a lot of senior enterprise architects, I guess, don't have when they don't have that visibility, because I come across lots of really good architects during my time who say, if only I had known this 3 months ago, I wouldn't have, wasted my time designing it.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. And again, earlier on, you mentioned an interesting sort of ideology around how your team is ecosystem, and you come from you do architecture and ecosystem led rather than engineering. If you wouldn't mind going, and what are the benefits as opposed to it?
Yeah, so this makes me seen as a controversial
Great
idea. So I think it. So my views depend largely on the market segment in which you operate.
Okay.
Like I said, if we were a fintech, then maybe not so much ecosystem led. Maybe, I don't know, if you were a retail bank, I think ecosystem led means you keep an eye on ecosystem partners. You keep an eye on capabilities that are more likely to become commoditized before you embark on. So I'll give you some numbers as an example. Right? So have you kept up to speed with the MAD landscape?
No, I haven't. I'm afraid.
So MAD landscape is machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data landscape. There's a landscape that gets published every year.
Okay.
And it shows, how many companies operate in that space of machine learning, AI, data, etc. I was looking at the 2021 landscape versus 2023 landscape. In 2 years alone, there's been a new addition of more than 300 companies globally.
Right.
Yeah. The total number now, I think it's 1,416. So looking at OpenAI stats, in the last 12 months alone, I think now the number is over 900 companies using OpenAI for building new products for their customers, right? So when I say ecosystem led rather than engineering led, what I mean is if you have a good appreciation of the talent in your company, the speed at which you can build product, and compare that with, your ecosystem around you, and take time to go through each different capability, like customer engagement, risk management, blah, blah. You'll soon realize that there are segments where the ecosystem can churn out product a lot quicker than you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's no longer then about the speed at which you can build capability, but more the speed at which you can integrate with commoditized
Other things. Yeah.
capabilities
Other
in the market.
systems.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot quicker than you could. And this happens in my case because a lot of companies I work for aren't necessarily tech companies. They try to portray that, we're a tech company that does insurance. Us being insurance company, right?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
uses technology.
That uses technology to its advantage. So for us, keeping sight of what's readily available, it's super important for speed.
Doesn't that encourage the magpie effect though? And, architects in particular and the engineers even more so actually, love the next shiny thing that's coming out. So creating that ecosystem led environment, surely that encourages, oh, right, there's a new company there that are doing that. We could really do with that. Bang, let's go full steam ahead. And then, as you say, realize in 6 months' time, we probably didn't do a full scope as another business actually that was better for us. And new business popping up, new technology business popping up every sort of couple of days at the moment.
So I'm referring to both the tech businesses as well as the tech-enabled business ecosystem.
Fine.
So for instance, let's say you're underwriting AV or you're underwriting property and natural catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
You're more likely to find people, companies that have built AI embedded applications for your very use case that you can plug in.
Fine.
But you're right. It doesn't overcome the magpie. Yeah. It's right. So part of having innovation.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, every year we allocate X amount of funds for experimenting and surveying, and here's the criteria that they need to pass to tap onto that funding, and here's the criteria they need to pass. So we put them into production and think about it seriously. The other way you control that risk is by having clarity of your financial budgeting cycle. So for instance, if you're a private equity backed business, you need to demonstrate value every 2-3 years.
Yep.
So as long as you pick something that allows you to move back and you can show return in those 2-3 year periods, it's fine. If in year 4 you go, okay, it was a bad idea, let's move something else.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're sure.
Yeah.
Right. You've tried something, tested it. Even if it doesn't work, it might not work because, the marketing.
And IQ are a private equity backed business, and you've already said there how that might change your thought process. So how do you demonstrate value of architecture in a quicker cycle within what private equity firms expect, really? As you say, it's a 2 to 3 year cycle max. How do you demonstrate value that quickly? Ship it. Just do it.
So I think mentally you need to have the strategy, but you don't want to hold people back.
Yeah.
And wait for something. So I think for me, it's plugging yourself into projects and programs, not sitting in that ivory tower. That's got to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think, is you architect for speed and flexibility without compromising security. Those two are the main ones. So you don't necessarily architect for scale, or volume that your business doesn't need.
Yeah.
Like of the 6-7 things architects care about, you kind of pick your corner.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Makes sense.
So for instance, if you're architecting for speed, you might say to project that, okay, I'll approve working with engineering to stand up a separate environment where you can build your demo, but you'll be funding so I can create the Node.js environment for you. But as an architect, what you're controlling is the language that they use.
Yes.
Yeah. So, let's say it only supports Node. So you can't then allow a project team to write up its app in Python.
Yeah.
Hypothetical example. Right? So you have to get down at the engineering level, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no room for theory.
Mm, exactly that. Yeah. Because the investors, they want their money back and they want it quick. So yeah, I get that. And you briefly touched on sort of your background and the AI side and machine learning side of within the data element. What's your process of, at a really high level, this is, by the way, let's not get into detail, but what's your process of developing an AI at risk of businesses being magpied, so to speak? AI, the new shiny thing, the new kid on the block. How do we really govern a negative connotation to it around being really risk adverse and so on? But you have to be risk adverse with AI, right? So how do you, make it less sexy? I think when we've spoken about it in the past, you've said
This is a topic that I think I got recognized within my peer well before sort of ML ops or generative AI was in the market. Because I think by recollection, I put 4 sort of machine learning based models or AI based models into live production and benefit. And across the industry, we're still at that sort of 15% projects to actually go to that. Yeah. So that might probably zapped in 30, 40 fields. So more failure than success.
Yeah. Than successes. Yeah.
I think companies writing AI strategy, I think, so I'm co-authoring ours. So I think ignore the word AI for a second.
Yeah.
Just look at, sort of your company's goal, vision, whatever. And find opportunities of how AI can help with outcomes.
Okay.
So for instance, if you've got, like a 5-pillar or 6-pillar that says, okay, we're going to do this for people, this for growth, this for, cost simplification, this for blah, blah, blah. Identify, a handful of use cases across those. Because that explains to the business the net value of doing so. I think the AI strategy starts from that point onward, which is saying, okay, of these, 20 use cases, how many different vehicles do I have? What delivery patterns do I have? Because not all AI is the same. Yeah. For some people, AI is just a little bit more sophisticated, unsupervised machine learning. For some people, it is agents who are training other large language models. Right. For some people, it is AI embedded in other systems that you buy. Right. So like your patterns aren't, and for some people, it's just using Copilot. So spin up maybe 4 of these type of delivery vehicles against those use cases, and then try to find, okay, what's the biggest coverage I can get with the minimum spend. That is strategy, in my opinion. It's how you maximize your resources, your time, your money, and get the best value for the buck. The issue I have with majority of our strategy, they're very democratic and very flat. You can't pick it up and say, okay, what do you want? What are you okay for me not to do? Right? Like they're too flat. They don't show a sense of prioritization. That AI strategy should say, here's the level of investment we will make by buying things. Here's areas where we will wait and for the market to evolve. Here's the thing that we definitely see an advantage of being kind of first in the market to launch, and therefore we'll do it as an experiment. That is what I think AI needs to cover. It builds different delivery vehicles against use case, some sense of prioritization. And then you get very quickly into execution and say, okay, we can polish this theory. We can get more forensic about it. We can bring consultants in and, build this 20 list to 100 list. But how do we get this into action? And the action And if the action means you is missing, you can't even classify data to say which one I'm allowed to run an AI
Yeah,
model on, then okay, come back in 6 months.
yeah.
Yeah. Or if you don't have basic integration capability or basic event
There's
oriented
no point doing it.
capability,
Yeah.
or you can't even spin up a sandbox environment on your cloud tenant, yeah, come back in 6 months time.
But yeah, makes absolute sense.
Between that
That's
time, build your kind of runways, and then keep an eye on, let's say, third party labs and third
yeah, yeah.
party vendor, just
The exec have got a big part to play in it as well, haven't they? Because it's easy to get drawn into that as, somebody who doesn't come from a technology background. Oh, we're hearing AI can do this. We're hearing AI can do that. How about we do it? We could probably do it to the wrong, architect and, the technology function to implement AI when it's actually not needed. As you say, it's just about, right, can AI help? What's our current ecosystem? And does AI or this particular AI tool help us achieve where we're trying to get to rather than we're using AI's sake? Great. Okay. So we're coming towards the end of our chat, and I always ask sort of 4 or 5 quick fire questions. So
Okay.
here we go. So question number 1, what do you look for when you're building a team?
I think we may have covered this. Look at, do they have a bias towards action?
Mm-hmm.
Can they move from design into execution quickly and things? And so that's on the behavior side. Because of the way we're structuring our org, look for T-shaped individuals. And then the third, I'm always curious to see the path that they've taken. So whether they've come from an engineering background or system admin or governance, because that gives me sign of what they care about.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. If a CEO asks
A CEO
right now,
how can I help him or her maintain better alignment with the work that their different teams are doing?
Okay.
Because architects are meant to have that overarching visibility of, the totality of everything they identify. One might be on how could I help execute with confidence?
Okay.
Probably going to be one. Maybe the other one is on where are there untapped opportunities in the business?
Okay. Perfect. What do you expect in 2024 will be a game changer from a technology perspective?
I think further permeation, if that's the word, of generative AI into business systems.
Okay.
That probably is one. Another probably game changer.
Yeah. We've got 10 months left.
I think different versions of that might.
It's fairly unanimous across everybody.
You'll find generative AI not even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what's the biggest change you expect to see in the architecture market over the next 5 years?
2 to 3 years easier to say. I think you'll see more demand for orchestration engineering, more demand for API, more demand for cyber engineering skills. So I think we've just about gone through the data engineering hype cycle or data engineering demand. So I think the other thing you might 5 years is cloud service providers being up their quantum compute services.
Yep. Yeah.
So that you might see. And the third thing you might see is some explosion of observability tools for machine learning and AI.
Okay.
Especially when the EU AI Act and various different legislation hit the market, I think there's going to be the demand for kind of explaining observability, model drift detection, compliance tools for AI.
Okay. And that's a wrap. Sadly, we're at the end of another Transformational Blueprints episode. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and there were plenty of golden nuggets for you to take away. If you're a fan of the show, please do remember to share, like and leave reviews so that more people from our industry get to hear and benefit from these too. Please also follow Synaptic Group on LinkedIn to keep up to date with new episodes. Links in the show notes. Join us next time for another episode packed with tips and advice from senior leaders in the technology world.